So in this video, we're going to do some testing with the sport truck with the dragy GPS tracker. Tells you your quarter mile, 0 to 60, all that sort of stuff.
Who's there? Connecting rod.
That's good. And it seems to be totally accurate, you know, within 0.02 of a second in the quarter, which is good enough for me, especially when you're running like 16-second quarter miles in these things. So a couple weeks ago, we bent some valves in the built head. I slapped a stock head on it, which is on there now. We do have the built head ready to go back on, basically stock bottom end. It's got integrated engineering rods, but as far as I was told from the person who put the motor together, they're stock spec. You just kind of put them in there in case they were going to boost the motor one day. It's got some cheap, I think a Raceland or Pace Setter header and a 2 1/4 or 2.5 inch catback exhaust. The transmission is a short ratio 9A. I don't think you can see it in the camera there, but it's a short ratio 9A. Basically a stock ABA with exhaust and we'll say an intake. Carbs are jetted pretty rich right now for this head. Same jetting that was on here for this head, which we'll get into in a bit, tell you what's done to this head. But first we're going to do the benchmark runs and see what we're up against. Everything's basically stock aside from the coil. You got stock plug wires, everything in terms of ignition. It's still got the factory ICM in there bouncing around. We're gonna take the filters off to help compensate for them running rich. That should put us right where we want to be. If we go out and they're still super rich, then I'll have to jet them down because it won't be a fair comparison. I'm going to try to make this as fair of a test as possible without spending 5 days trying to film it. Air filters are off for this. We're going to put them on when the built head is on. Here we go. I'll do a little... Of course. Clean the tires off. Set the draggy. First one was a 17.2, which really wasn't great. It seemed to load up at the top of 4th gear. We're shifting early anyways because the ABAs in stock form don't really make a ton of power up top. I'm shifting like just under 5,000 RPMs. There's no sense in trying to rev it out any higher. So, all right, let's see. Let's do one more. Set. Yeah, we did 17.25 that second run. Same thing, it was kind of loading up and getting a little rich. I have one thing I want to try. I do have the license plates that block direct airflow coming in. I really don't want to go trying to rejet these carburetors because it's going to be a bit of an ordeal. It's never simple, you know. It could take us a whole afternoon trying to get them. You know, that it could take a whole afternoon trying to get the carburetors dialed in. So what we're gonna do is simply take these license plates and bend them up so you get some direct airflow.
real ghetto. This is real ghetto. But that should definitely get them to run a bit leaner. Much better AFR. So let's try this one last time. Reset the draggy. Definitely better that time. We got a 17.13, I think it was. So this will be the fourth and final stock head run. So as ghetto as it is, taking off the air filters and peeling the plates up, it works. It runs like shit. I've told many people this before with carburetors on cross flow engines, 16 valves, ABAs. You can't have direct air pushing into the carbs, because if you, I don't know if you guys can see it, but if you watch the AFR, if you go quarter throttle, it just leans right out. It just pegs the wideband out. It runs like shit unless you're wide open. I've said this to people in the past. Here's video proof of it. You do not want direct airflow being forced into your carbs on a cross flow motor. They don't like it. That's why I have these license plates riveted into place. So just to recap, the best was a 17.13. We hit a 17.15 that last run, 17.25, 17.20. So we're basically running a consistent 17.1, 17.2. It is loading up real bad right at the end, at the top of fourth, like the last 200 RPMs. But let's say it's capable of like a 17 flat. I think it's a pretty fair assumption. If we rejet the carbs and get them 100%, we could probably run a 17 flat, maybe a 16.9. But I'm gonna stick with a 17.0, 17.1. Which is bad. That's really bad. I had a built 1.8 liter, the old motor that was in this truck. A little bit of head work done to it, but a 1.8 liter JH GTI motor. And I broke into the 16s with that setup. I think that was like a mid 16 if I remember correctly. So, you know, it's just these ABAs, I've said it a million times before, they're not the fastest. They're just the most efficient, and if you decide you want to boost them, then you're talking business. I'm gonna get home. We're gonna swap this head out in the next day or two. Again, you guys will just see it in a second, and then we're gonna go back out and do the same tests.
we've got a stock head and a built head. Swapping heads on the truck right now. So I figured it's best time to kind of show you a side-by-side, show you the physical differences, and kind of show you some of the things that you can do if you want to get more power. You know, some things to consider while you have your head off. Maybe you want to drop it off at the machine shop to help get it flowing better. But we'll go over a few things done to this head, the built one, that make it better performing than a stock head. So one of the most common things that people do is port and polish the head, and what that means is opening up the passageways. This is the exhaust side. On the other side is the intake. Same idea with that though. More specifically, this head has been gasket matched. So what that means is the ports have been ground out and expanded to basically match the size of your standard gaskets. If you look at it on a stock head, the gasket is bigger than the ports. So you can go bigger than the gasket. At that point you need to make your own gaskets or get different. 90% of the time people just gasket match it. Helps it flow better. Now the thing is, you don't want to just do one set of ports. You know, you don't want to just do the exhaust or the intake side. You need to do them both if you really want to benefit. Otherwise it's, you know, it's wasted effort, wasted money. Now while we're on the topic of airflow, we've also got the valves. Now it's hard to, it might not be easy to see in the video, but the stock size valves, these are stock sized valves, these are 1mm oversized. So if, a good way to a good indicator of that is kind of seeing the amount of space between the valves. You can see there's more space on the stock valves than these oversized ones. These are 1mm oversized. I believe you could go 1.5 and even 2mm. You're pushing the limits at that point though. Whole lot more work involved with that. I mean, as you can see here, you'd run out of valve seat. 1mm oversized is a good, healthy difference. Like I said, past that, you're talking big work. You're throwing more reliability out the window. And for what gain? You know, if you're building a track car, then it's a different story. But for your daily driven street car, even the 1mm oversized valves can be considered not worth the time or money to do it. I didn't build this head. I don't think I would have done that from the get-go. I probably would have just found the biggest valve stock head. I don't really think there's any options for the ABA 8 valve, but as I've mentioned in previous videos, if you have a 1.8 head and block, you can find later heads that have bigger valves than some of the earlier 1.8s. You know, he's talking $50 for a whole motor that has the head you want versus $1,500 at the machine shop to do port polish, oversized valves, all that stuff. So again, the intake and exhaust ports on this head have been gasket matched. Another thing you could do is get more compression by shaving the head. What that means is you're taking material off the bottom here and basically shortening the head. You're bringing the valves and the head itself closer to the pistons. You're increasing the amount of compression in the cylinder, thus giving you more power. The downside to higher compression though is you need to run higher octane fuel. The higher the compression, the higher octane fuel you'll need. This head is shaved down to run about a 10.5 or 11:1 compression, somewhere around that, which is safe limit for 93 octane. You could push higher if you have NOx sensors and more complicated ECUs than what I have. There's only so much material you can take off the bottom of the head, and you don't want to take too much off because, again, back to the pump fuel aspect, unless you're going to be running race fuel, which is really expensive, you don't want to raise your compression up too high. The other thing is if you warp your head, to fix that you have to shave the bottom to get it flat again. So if you've already shaven it for higher compression, you now have less room to work with should your head get warped later on down the line. So that's something to keep in mind. You really can't see the difference between the two heads in the video, but this one has been shaved down for more compression. And then again, on the intake side, this head has been gasket matched. It's hard to see the difference in the video, but these ports are larger than those on the stock head. Now last, but certainly not least, to make this all work to its full potential, you want a high lift camshaft. Now the difference between this 288 cam and the stock one is the size of these lobes. As far as I was told, this is a totally stock cam. I didn't check it to confirm, but basically what a camshaft does, or what an upgraded camshaft, higher lift camshaft does, is open the valves more. Now you can see the difference in the peaks of these lobes. So you can see how peaky this one is versus how rounded off this is. Now the benefits of this cam in particular is it will open the valves longer, it'll push them out further, make them open more, and keep them open for longer. You can see the duration or width of this peak versus this one. The valves will stay open longer and they will open more. So I forgot to mention the other downside of shaving your head for compression, especially when you run a high lift cam, is you now turn your motor into an interference motor. You can see how far out that valve sticks compared to that one. It's almost flush. If you snap your timing belt, chances are you won't bend valves with a stock head, stock cam. Whereas this motor, as you already saw, if the motor loses time, you bend valves. So that's how much further the valve opens. So this will give you a decent idea of how much more that valve opens, but keep in mind the head is shaved, so that valve is naturally going to sit lower when it's open. But that camshaft does contribute to pushing that valve down further, giving you more airflow. As always, if you guys have questions about a head you're putting together or not sure which route you should go, feel free to leave a comment below. Myself and plenty of other people will be more than glad to chime in and give you our recommendations on what might be the best route for you, or what might be overkill or a waste of money for what you want out of the car.
This is going to be the first pull with the built head. Better than the last run. Run number 2. Got 15.3 again. 15.33. I think that's literally exactly the same run as last time. So it makes me question the accuracy of this thing. Let's see. Well, the first one said invalid, so I'm not sure what that means, but they're identical, so that's iffy in my opinion. Let's call that first run bullshit. Clean the tires off. All right, run number 3. Because that was a really bad launch. We could do a better launch than that. That one wasn't good. All right, reset. it's verified or not, we'll wait and see. If it's not verified, we'll do one more. It says invalid for that one as well, so that's kind of frustrating. So that last run was a 15.44, also not a great launch. I don't think we're quite gonna break into, I don't think we're gonna break into the 14s on these tires. Definitely not with an open diff either. So I feel like I could probably get it down to like a 15.2, 15.1 as it sits right now. I think with some stickier tires and a differential, we would definitely be down into the 14s. So I think this motor setup in particular, capable of a mid 14 with traction, maybe a little better. That old setup, maybe if I tuned it better, maybe down into the 16s, like high 16s. But it really didn't have much else in it. These ABAs in stock form, they fall on their face at like 5,000 RPM, so.
So here are all the times all of these 17-second runs. The bottom four are with the stock head. So at a 17.2, 17.25, 17.13, 17.15, pretty consistent. The wheel spin pretty minimal. Pretty easy to launch it with a lower power. And then we have these 15.3s. We had a 16.3, but for the most part we were pretty consistent with low 15s. What's kind of concerning is how we had two 15.33s, nearly identical. 2.5 60 foot on that first one, and then same thing. 330 is 6.49. 6.52 on this 330 foot. The 8th mile is 992 at 72, whereas on the other one is 985 at 73. So they're a little different, but they're pretty identical. I mean, these draggies are supposed to be super accurate. People have shown them to be super accurate. We have these two invalid runs though. What that is saying that the slope was greater than less than 1%. Thing I don't get is on these are all on the same road, just going point A to B, then B to A. These bottom like 5-6 runs are all on the same direction. And if the run going quote unquote downhill was invalid, then why would the run uphill be any more valid? I think it's safe. We'll just split the difference here, with the best run being a 15.2 and the best valid run being a 15.3. You know, we're doing like a 15.25. We're doing like a 15.2, 15.3 in the quarter without traction. This motor setup's capable of like a mid 14-second quarter mile, give or take, pending better traction. You know, whether that's with tires or a diff or both. That we shaved off about 2 seconds off the quarter mile time between the built and stock head. Pretty decent, if you ask me. The 16.3 run, terrible launch with a full tank of fuel. We had about 2-3 gallons of fuel in these best runs. Probably would have had trouble breaking past 15.5 with a full tank of fuel. So the weight definitely doesn't help. These early runs on the stock head, I know we were under half a tank of fuel, so pretty even comparison. If I dialed the carburetors in better for these stock runs, I mean, we probably could have gotten like a 16.9. I really don't feel like there was much room for improvement there. It's safe to say we got about a 2-second difference, up to 2.5 second difference in the quarter mile. Like I said, this all depends on traction. I mean, on our best run, even the 15.2, this 60 foot was 2.5, which was atrocious. That's not good. You want to be down towards the 2 flat or better. I think once I get the R888s on the truck, which will be sometime next week, we'll do another run to see if we can get a better 60 foot. I also got to be careful to not grenade my transmission. So for those of you who are wondering, yes, I did film the removal and installation of the cylinder heads this past weekend. I also filmed some stuff regarding setting your timing, checking your timing. So you can also look forward to that. I do have to film a couple more things for the timing. The cylinder head video is probably going to be pretty lengthy too, so I don't want to cram too much in that one video. So those are going to be 2 separate videos. Like I said, cylinder head video should be up in a few days. I just have to edit the footage, and then about a week or so after that, you can look for a timing video. How to set your timing, how to check your timing, ignition timing, cam timing, all that stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, any comments, want to talk some shit, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys want to see next.